my capacity as Acting Minister of Justice, I'm here to respond to the questions posed by the Honourable Members of Parliament, starting with the UP faction, MP Lacruz. During previous budget debates, concerns were raised regarding the lengthy processing times for residency permits. Can the department explain the reasons for these extended delays? Additionally, given that there has been no notable increase in the budget allocation for staffing, can the department clarify whether staffing shortages are a legitimate reason for the backlog? Madam Chair, the delays in processing residency permits are due to a combination of factors. While limited staffing continues to affect overall capacity, we also acknowledge that the CRM automation system introduced in 2022 has not performed as intended and has contributed to the backlog. We are currently auditing the system and transitioning to purpose-built immigration software. In parallel, we are reviewing internal work processes to improve efficiency. While delays are sometimes caused by incomplete or invalid submission from applicants, we recognize that more proactive communication and better systems are needed to prevent such issues. Addressing this remains a priority for the ministry. Next question. I previously mentioned that a project related to the safety of Phillipsburg had been funded. I would like to clarify, once a government-funded project has been paid for, who holds responsibility for its execution? Specifically, I am referring to the project concerning the newer Hef Bowman in Phillipsburg. Has this project been reviewed or assessed? If so, could you please provide an update? Madam Chair, through you, this is currently being discussed with the Cabinet of TIAT. Next question. In cases where a politician is convicted of committing a crime in collaboration with the Minister of Romy and is ordered to repay, for example, 10 million guilders, the recovered funds are directed to the crime fund, while the government bears the cost of the investigation and legal proceedings. Given that the politician effectively stole from the government and the government undertakes the efforts and expenses to recover the stolen funds, why are these funds not returned directly to government's coffers? Madam Chair, through you, this is regulated by law. See Article 3 of the National Ordinance regulating the Crime Fund. Next question. Is there existing legislation that mandates the funds be directed to the crime fund instead of the government? If so, what legislative changes would be necessary to ensure that in such cases, stolen funds are returned directly to the government? Madam Chair, through you, yes, the National Ordinance regulating the crime fund, Landverordening, Criminaliteitsbestrijdingsfonds. Next question. Article 5.1 of the Crime Fund states that each year when submitting the budget, the minister must submit a policy plan to identify the projects that are eligible for financing from the Crime Fund in the budget year. Has such a policy been presented this year? If so, can we get a copy? Madam Chair, through you, indeed, Article 5.1 of the Crime Fund stipulates that a policy plan must identify the projects eligible for financing. For 2025, no overarching policy plan is yet in effect. Only incidental requests have been approved. These involved 2 court-mandated cases focused on prevention and reintegration of mental health patients, where specialized services were unavailable locally. Law enforcement chaperoning costs were also covered. In line with recommendations from the Law Enforcement Council, an amendment to the National Ordinance governing the Crime Fund, along with an accompanying policy framework, is currently being drafted and is slated for completion in 2025. However, the Minister has proactively engaged various organizations and invited proposals aligned with crime prevention goals. We are currently awaiting proposals from 3 potential projects that, if deemed suitable, may be financed through the Crime Fund and incorporated into the upcoming policy plan. Next question. Who bears the cost for towed vehicles if they remain unclaimed for over 3 months? Madam Chair, through you, according to the towing policy, if the owner or user of the vehicle does not claim it within the required time frame of 4 weeks, the vehicle will be sold or destroyed. The owner or user will be responsible for covering the actual cost of these procedures, minus any potential revenue generated from the sale of the vehicle or its materials. This includes any applicable taxes. All risks associated with towing and storage, including any unintended damage that could not be reasonably avoided, are the responsibility of the owner or user of the vehicle. Exceptions to this policy apply in cases where state authorities or a court determine that the towing was unlawful. In such cases, the state will be responsible for the costs and risk associated with towing and storage. Next question. Is there a formal procedure for how long a towing company may hold such vehicles before they are relocated, auctioned, or otherwise disposed of to recover costs? Madam Chair, through you, if the owner or authorized user of the vehicle fails to claim it within the designated time frame of 4 weeks, the vehicle will be subject to further action. This may involve either selling the vehicle at auction or, if necessary, having it destroyed. It is important for the owner or user to be aware of this time frame to avoid losing their vehicle permanently. Next question. What measures are in place to ensure towing companies are not left with unpaid bills after fulfilling their contracted duties? Madam Chair, through you, the ministry has established a towing policy, accompanied by a rotational towing program designed to effectively manage vehicle towing needs. However, at this moment, there are no towing companies officially contracted to provide services for justice. In order to kickstart the rotational towing program, we require a minimum of 3 towing companies to participate. As of now, only 1 company has shown interest in being part of this initiative. Unfortunately, this particular company does not meet the established criteria due to its inadequate storage facilities for impounded vehicles. Next question. Additionally, it has been reported that a particular towing company can no longer use its current storage location. What is the government's plan for the particular area? Madam Chair, through you, we are currently investigating this matter thoroughly. If it becomes necessary to provide further clarification or information, we will ensure that a formal written response is sent to you. Last question. If there is no plan, what is the intended solution for the storage of towed vehicles currently held near the former receiver's office? Madam Chair, through you, this will be discussed in the next upcoming Driehoek meeting. I now move on to questions posed by MP Otley. Will a budget amendment be required to address the emergency costs associated with the recent crisis at the prison? Madam Chair, through you, at this stage, we are still exploring whether the necessary funding can be secured within the 2025 budget through internal reallocation across budget posts. To ensure continuity in critical recovery and repair work, we are also seeking to pre-finance certain emergency expenditures through the Crime Fund. Should these measures prove insufficient, the possibility of a budget amendment cannot be ruled out. Next question. Following last Friday's court ruling against the Ministry of Justice concerning the prisoner transferred to Simpson Bay, and the broader acknowledgement that the prison constitutes an inhumane facility, despite ongoing crisis and warnings from the MP, can you clarify? Madam Chair, through you, the court ruled on June 9th that any detention to the police cells longer than 10 days violates Article 3 of the European Human Rights Convention due to the detention conditions in these cells. Despite the damages caused by the May 14th riot and fire in Point Blanche, the court ruled that the ministry must comply with the 10-day rule and transfer the detainee from the police cells back to Point Blanche or must pay a fine. Next question. What type of expert was brought in to manage the crisis? Madam Chair, no external experts were specifically contracted or remunerated for crisis management. The personnel from UNOPS have been supporting us as part of their existing mandate related to the new prison project. Additionally, the Ministry of Bezeka provided temporary support through personnel within the scope of our existing cooperation agreements.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories.
So you like my new room?
And dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
During yesterday's meeting, Minister Gums, through you, Madam Chair, in her capacity as Minister of Finance, made this statement against political games and stated clearly that the delayed payment or non-payment of justice workers has nothing to do with the delay of the budget 2025. So if that is the case, then my question to the Minister of Justice is, what is the holdup with the payment? Since the non-payment has nothing to do with the delay of 2025 for justice workers, why hasn't the payment started? and when is it intended to pay the justice workers of St. Martin? Also, for budget post 5202 for the prison and jail, we have projects and activities for the amount of 118,882. But in the two listing, there's no description of what this money will be used for. Can an explanation be given as to what this 100,000+ for projects and activities for the prison be used specifically for? We need to ensure that it's going towards the right things and it'll go where it needs to go. Madam Chair, through you, the minister stated that she did receive on June 5th, that was the last time she heard from the probationary board. So I would like to know what was the findings of such. June 5th was just a couple of days ago. So did any inmate then qualify for early release or probation? Will this be taken up immediately, seeing that the prison condition and lack of space? Madam Chair, we speak of the electronic monitoring system. I would like to know specifically what is the difference with the penal code with the Netherlands and St. Martin. I also would like to refer to Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire. Also Curacao having Article 137. And I would like to make it straight because I listened very carefully. And the minister keeps saying we cannot use electronic monitoring as an alternative for sentencing. I can't speak for anyone else, but in my phrasing, in my knowledge, what we are trying to do is have electronic monitoring for exactly what you said, in line with what you said, for early release due to cell capacity issues. So for me, we are now in line as to why and when electronic monitoring can be used as a process for early release and not as an alternative, Minister. So I'm glad that that was stated. Okay, I've been told that I need to speak more into the mic. Madam Chair, through you, I would also like to make note that the minister stated, as we speak of the electronic monitoring, I would like to also note that despite cell capacity, we need to ensure that we are in line with the human rights articles and do not violate especially Article 3 and Article 5. Article 5 is specifically, and when I look at the case with the European Court, it says under further complaints of Article 5 of the Covenant of the Joint Court had failed to conduct adequate examination of the possibility of suspending the person's detention. Very important. A person's liberty, once taken away, comes with rules, regulations. But we should look at every adequate possibility of suspending such. And this is where electronic monitoring comes into play. I asked the question to the Honorable Minister as how much was spent for the assistance with Curacao and Aruba, and I got to elaborate of who paid half. I didn't ask about that. I asked how much. That's it. Tell me how much. Also, Madam Chair, through you, I asked about if St. Martin is to lose a court case, again, due to violation of human rights, who will bear the cost? And it was said that it's a shared cost. And I refer to an article in 2018, whereby it says, 2018, Parliament wants the gentleman's fine to be paid by Dutch government. At the moment, it is said that it to be paid by St. Martin. And the members of Parliament, this very floor, is saying that it should be paid by the Dutch. I also have an article here by Knops at the time, so it all depends who is in power, stating that he is not in agreement with the motion by his colleague for the Dutch to acquire any fees, and the Dutch government is studying that the fine will be passed on to the right party, which is St. Martin. So, Madam Chair, through you, let us do what we need to do. Let us ensure we are not in violation, because we will carry the brunt of it. The Netherlands will not, never, ever take any heat for us, as it's proving in 2018, where our own members were fighting that the bill don't be sent to St. Martin and sent to the Netherlands. and the members in the start were saying the bill should be sent to St. Martin. That's the reason I asked.
Minister, do you know, in your capacity as Acting Minister of Justice, that currently the inmates in Bonaire, that their rights are heavily being violated at this moment? In saying so, I understood that they are not also in the regular cells that they're supposed to be in the area. I understood that they're in an asylum area or in a psych ward area, and they're reaching out to their people here and in St. Martin. And I've also received a call from the Netherlands from one of the family members of an inmate in Bonaire pertaining to the complaints that the inmate gave his relative. I would like to know if you know anything about this, if the ministry on a whole knows anything about exactly where our inmates are placed in Bonaire, and at any other relevant island where inmates were sent to, or in the Netherlands. And how long would it take for us to recover that we can have our out there part of St. Martin's population? How long would it take for them to be back here in St. Martin?
Mefina, under MP York's question, one of the answers was there's about 300 years to be served. I would like to know how many persons does that equate to, and specifically between the ages of 18 to 25. So how many persons are awaiting, have already been sentenced, but placement in prison, and from the ages between of 18 and 25. And this is very important because when we're talking about rehabilitation programs to come, this is a very important age group. And we need to understand that if there's a significant amount, 18, 19, 20 years old, we need to tailor our rehabilitation programs to them to provide them the best possible second chance available.
When I asked in the first round, how much is needed to deal with the immediate issue meaning at the Point Blanche House of Detention, I was told that the ministry is still painting a picture. This happened a couple of weeks ago, so my question was more geared towards what is needed to facilitate the return of the inmates because of what eventually happened in terms of the court ruling. I also asked, Madam Chair, through you, if the minister can give an indication as to how much is needed to be paid to, let's say, the assistants from Aruba, Curacao. And based on my understanding, in the beginning, the minister mentioned nothing is needed to be paid, that they are covering it. And then in a later question, similar to what I posed, the minister said that they have to cover certain costs. So my question is this again. Do we have to pay for assistance, yes or no? Is it on a lower basis, lower amount, if that can just be clarified? Thirdly, Madam Chair, I heard the minister mention that my question based on the officers being covered or insured is insinuating that they are not covered at all. I never indicated that, Madam Chair. I could go back in the video. I specifically asked about life insurance, which we know the reason why the life insurance came about when Officer Benjamin lost his life a couple of years ago. So my question was, is this life insurance active? For the reason of me seeing in the newspaper that it is not the case. I never saw a response from the Minister of Justice, so I just would like some clarity on that. Later on in the response, the minister mentioned that they are now working on a comprehensive plan to include all uniformed justice workers. I know that it was the case that only police officers were covered. So am I to understand that all uniformed frontline officers, so the prison guards, the customs, immigration, will all of those be included now? And if so, I feel that that is a great idea because that is what I heard the minister mention. So I'd like some clarity on that.
For the price per inmate a day. The reason why I'm asking that, because I would like to know as well if it has been looked into how much it will cost to monitor inmates with ankle bracelets. So that's why I find it important to have that amount. Other than that, in regards to the ankle bracelet monitors, I can remember that it was mentioned in the past that there were about 25 ankle bracelets. Is that still the case? Are there more? How much of those ankle bracelets are currently in effect? that being asked, I will also other question of a MP, I think it was MP York as well, and then MP Dimar Labega asked a follow-up question in regards to the amount of years versus the amount of persons. And I would like to add a question to that. When was based on the amount of persons, what is the oldest verdict in that sense? If that can be traced back. Other than that, it was mentioned that, and I think our other colleague mentioned that already, but just for clarification's sake, in regards to the policy that is being referred to, that the Inmates Association lawyer provided a policy plan, and also Attorney Souveran provided a plan, and I would like to know what the reason is that that plan cannot be used, because I understood as well that it was mentioned that basically how I understood it, but it can be clarified, that there are two different law books being used, if that is the summary. If not, if that can be clarified, because according to me, there is no difference in the law, but I'm of course stand to be corrected. I really would like to know what is the difference, and if there's a difference, why can it not be tweaked to the legislation of St. Martin if it's mentioned in the law? Because according to me, it's also based on a MBA, and a MBA is the minister can decide on that. And I also know that in the past, it was decided on by previous ministers to have in the sake of capacity, because let's be real about it, the capacity issue is not an issue of now. And in the past, there were policies made to temporarily lift the capacity issue. I mentioned it in the past already, when it was, for example, in regards to persons that were incarcerated that were not from St. Martin, they would get a vreemdelingenkorting. Translation, MPs? Yeah, vreemdelingenkorting. So basically, they will get a discount, foreigner discount based on, I think it was 50% of their sentence. And if you were from St. Martin, then there would be our, they used to call it a treintjebeleid, that would then make it based on the amount of time that you have served, seeing the current capacity issue, so it was focused on capacity, you will be released earlier. Or I can also remember, and that's only in the few years that I have been here, that there was also a possibility of ankle bracelet monitoring. So I really would like to have it clear what the reason is that currently that cannot be used or not be developed, or if it can be developed, seeing the urgency, why can the current policy that is in place or that has been submitted by Mr. Souveran, why can that not be tweaked to St. Martin if it's being said that the legislation is different? So just for clarity's sake, I would like to know why that is not possible and what the ministry will currently do to address this matter to something that is possible for St. Martin.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories.
So you like my new bro?
And dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Hurricanes are massive storm systems that form over the water and move toward land. Threats from hurricanes include high winds, heavy rainfall, storm surge, coastal and inland flooding, rip currents, and tornadoes. In the event of a hurricane, you've got to know where to go. If you're ordered to evacuate, know the local hurricane evacuation routes to take and have a plan for where you can stay. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
We begin the questions posed first by the MP, Darrell York. He asked, road resurfacing project, how much has been spent from the road resurfacing budget to date? Approximately 5.4 million guilders has been spent thus far on road resurfacing under the capital expenditure budget. How much is still left? An estimated 300,000 guilders is remaining. How much has been spent on road markings? Around 150,000 guilders was spent on road markings. The MP requests documentation for the site for the height services done for Sir Garden Road and the LB Scotch Road. At this time, of course, as indicated before, height surveys were not part of the terms of reference for this project, nor were they requested after. MP requests the mixed designs for Sir Garden Road, Point Blanche Road, and LB Scotch Road. The requested documentation design mix will be requested from the contractor and submitted in writing. What has been done different in the manner of execution or planning as it pertains to the one done prior to the ministry's tenure? The Department of Infrastructure has taken steps to enforce the use of better quality materials and equipment from contractors. Internally, the department has also restructured its project management team compared to the tenure of the previous minister. What is the status of the side road project? Is the schedule up to date? Is it incurring delays? For the side road project, approximately 80% of the project has been completed thus far. Moving on to the MP's second question. There was going to be removal of construction structures. What is the status on that, and how many removal orders has the minister signed since December? A total of 24 stop removal orders have been signed since December, and several have been taken down. The ministry will continue its efforts in this regard. Erosion problems in the hills, MP would like an update, especially as it pertains to South Reward, Mary's Fancy, and Ebenezer areas. The ministry is currently engaged in addressing erosion issues throughout the country. In the area of Cul-de-Sac, we are busy looking into the areas mentioned by the MP and are finalizing emergency interventions in Ebenezer, and will move to areas based on assessment of critical urgency. A planned approach is being prepared to mitigate the flooding of the lower lying areas in the Cul-de-Sac Basin with the implementation of retention ponds. The plans are being reviewed, and a draft request to allocate the necessary funds has been submitted for consideration in CapEx 2026. Who is part of the zoning team? The policy department at VROMI will be the lead with zoning. We are aiming to have a comprehensive team, both in and out of house, of multiple stakeholders with various backgrounds and related expertise. The ministry will soon start the process of procuring legal expertise to support the process. The MP would like to see the Memorandum of Basic Principles for Zoning. The MP can be referred to Landsordning Ruimtelijke Ontwikkelingsplanne or zoning ordinance, in which the basic principles of zoning are laid down. A copy of this can, of course, be sent to Parliament, and I'll just very briefly go through what these basic principles are. The basic principles of zoning, as outlined in this ordinance, are centered on promoting the sustainable and balanced development of land and resources, zoning services to coordinate spatial development plans in a way that protects public interests, ensures compatibility of land uses, and prevents conflicts between residential, commercial, industrial, and environmental functions. It is based on a hierarchical planning structure, starting from a national spatial development plan down to detailed zoning regulations. Zoning plans must consider aspects such as safety, accessibility, environmental protection, cultural heritage, and infrastructure needs. Additionally, the ordinance emphasizes transparency, public participation, and legal certainty in the planning process to ensure that development decisions are fair, predictable, and aligned with long-term policy goals. Can the minister provide the preliminary draft zoning plan, and if it's ready, has it been presented to COM? The plan map is not final and has not been presented to COM. The plan for coastal and ecologically sensitive areas, or green zoning plan, that was presented to Parliament earlier this year is preliminary and subject to change. It basically envisions what we wish to achieve. The preliminary map was shared in the presentation to Parliament at the time. However, it is not yet published separately for above-mentioned reasons. MP has also asked the findings of the stakeholder analysis. What is the communication strategy? Has the internal VROMI consultation taken place? And can the minister give a short summary of the findings? No stakeholder analysis has been done as yet. However, we will build further on the stakeholder analysis that was done in the past by the NGOs, the private sector, ministries, and semi-governmental institutions. Will, of course, all be part of the stakeholder list. Regarding the green zoning plan, VROMI is now busy making the framework for this plan, where we will at least already include climate adaptation options. Furthermore, in collaboration with external assistance from the IPDC, the International Panel for Deltas and Coastal Areas, funded by the Netherlands, we will be conducting a coastal erosion study and geotechnical study in order to determine vulnerable areas where construction should either not be allowed or be subject to stricter building regulations to ensure safety and mitigate environmental impact. Have public consultations begun? If so, how are they going? Has the preliminary zoning plan been discussed with the public? If so, can the minister give a synopsis of this? No consultation with the public has taken place, as there is not yet a finalization of the comprehensive island-wide zoning. Consultation has, of course, taken place for the individual zoning maps that exist. What is the current status of the building permit backlog? What is the number? How many permits has been signed since January? How many does the department have in their possession for over 1 year? What is that number? What is the ministry doing about this? Concerning the backlog of permits, the department will be showing from the year of 2020 to 2025, so the past 5 years. Please keep in mind there are previous years that have permits still open, of course. The following years are as follows. 2020 has 60 permits still open. 2021 has 78 permits still open. 2022 has 64 permits still open. 2023 has 126 permits still open. 2024 has 165 permits still open. And 2025 has 89 permits still open.